We are talking about Strange New Worlds. Anson Mount addresses fears that Pike will exit when Paul Wesley's Kirk arrives. Interesting topic here because a lot of people were speculating that when Paul Wesley's new Kirk shows up, Anson Mount's Pike is going to bounce because in the actual canon, when Kirk arrives is when it's at the end of Pike's run. What do you think
Well,
about
it's a
this?
good thing Kurtzman Trek doesn't follow canon, right?
I guess you're right. In this
I mean, they
instance,
they just make it up as they go. They don't care what came before it.
so in the canon, there should be a brief period where Anson Mount he gets hurt. He's no longer the captain, and Kirk becomes the captain of the Enterprise. And we do know that Paul Wesley's brand new Kirk character will be joining Strange New Worlds for season 2. Still blows my mind that they already have a season 2 when season 1 hasn't aired yet. But whatever it is, that's what's happening. So in this article from CinemaBlend, it says when Strange New World first revealed Paul Wesley would arrive in season 2 as none other than James T. Kirk, the excitement was palpable. Speculation ensued regarding the period of Kirk's life we'd seen in that season and whether he'll be taking over as Captain of the Enterprise. I'm gonna move on. This is what was told. I'm sorry. This is what Anson Mount said. We wanted to do a true prequel to the original series, and that is couched in the Pike years. But as you know, in the world of TV scripting, one season does not necessarily correspond to 1 year. As we get into the show, there's really, I'm not sure we've really demarcated, I can't say that word, how far time is progressing between seasons. So I don't know. We'll see where it ends up, but no, that would be a very different show.
So demarcated
I don't know. I don't even know what that
is
word
that
means.
word. It's basically just like establishing.
Right.
They've established or explained how far time is progressing.
Well, Anson Mount is a smart guy. So the thing is, Star Trek canon dictates that Captain Christopher Pike will have a devastating accident that ultimately relieves him from active duty in Starfleet, and that it will happen sometime after James T. Kirk takes over as captain of the Enterprise. With that said, Anson Mount seemed to indicate the show featuring a Kirk-led Enterprise is not Strange New Worlds, at least not as he and the audience knows it. So, what seems to be being said here, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, is that he's saying that because time moves is not moving as years, they can cram 3 or 4 seasons in the next 3 years of canonical TV.
Yeah. So basically, like, let's say that Captain Pike, I don't know how long he was captain of the Enterprise before Kirk came along. Well, let's say 3 years, right? So he's captain of the Enterprise for 3 years before Kirk takes over. So basically, what he's saying there is that they can parse up the episodes in such a way where basically you could get 5 to 7 seasons out of that 3 years, right? So like you're not doing any big time leaps. Some of these adventures could happen over the course of like a day or two,
Right.
within like the time frame. So he's basically saying that like they're never going to tell you. They're just going to play fast and loose with the timeline and just be like, okay, well, like all this stuff happens before Kirk takes over the Enterprise. And then when the show ends, they'll be like, okay, like this was Pike's accident, and now Kirk takes over, and we're done.
Right. So that can also, right. That's exactly what he said. And the thing is, that can mean that we have a few seasons of Kirk and Pike working together, which would be, as you say, it wouldn't be canonical.
Well, I think Kirk would just like kind of like show up as like a guest star occasionally as like the captain of a different ship or something.
Mm.
Um, like I don't agree with them bringing in like a new Kirk to begin with, even though like they're bringing in a new Spock. It's just kind of like you know what, like I really wish that Anson Mount, because I love Anson Mount, I think
I
he's a
do too.
great actor. I really wish that he hadn't been cast as Pike. I would rather want to see them do an entirely new crew with a new ship with new characters, so that they're not beholden to any of the continuity that came beforehand, and
Mm-hmm.
they'd be able to like kind of like make these things their own and have like just unfettered creativity to do whatever the hell they want
You
instead
mean
of having to.
how they made Star Trek before Enterprise?
Yeah, like I call it the prequel plague, where basically you have all these like quote unquote creative people like Alex Kurtzman who are creatively bankrupt. And so they just take what was made beforehand and recycle it and reuse it. So franchises, if they keep doing prequels and going backwards, they stagnate and they fail.
Mm-hmm.
In order to keep a franchise healthy, you need to move forward with it. And that's one of the reasons why I think the Next Generation did so well, is because it was a forward momentum from the original series.
Right.
It wasn't parallel. It didn't go back in time. It went forward. And when you saw the TNG era fail is when they started doing Enterprise and they went back, and they've kept on going back ever since then. And so like
people argue that Enterprise was before Discovery. So technically Enterprise, it was like,
it's still a prequel, right?
It's a prequel, but now we have Discovery, which takes place after Enterprise, and then after Enterprise, it's Strange New Worlds. So,
but I mean, like they recognized this with Discovery, and so they sent them 1,000 years into the future, right?
Right, because they were getting lambasted, yeah.
Yeah, and so now we've got like 700 years between the Next Generation and Discovery, where basically it's
900 years.
Whatever it is, the burn happened, and nothing actually happened within those 900 years until like Discovery showed back up. And it's just kind of like, you know what, let's go back to like a different timeline, and just let's go forward from where Enterprise left off, or Next Generation left off.
Voyager.
And let's see some forward momentum with the franchise instead.
Voyager was the final show in the timeline, but yeah.
Okay, whatever. But I'm just saying that instead of recycling stuff from the original series, let's do something new and different and go forward.
I agree totally. I would like to see. Yeah, I would like to see the same thing. I mean, as excited as I am to see Strange New Worlds because of Anson Mount. If you ask me, do you want to watch Strange New Worlds tomorrow, or scrap this whole season and get a new Star Trek show that is taking place canonically after the events of Voyager, where it makes sense to take place, what would you rather watch? I'm like, I want to watch that. I want to watch the show continue the story, not move around the timeline, so much.
Yeah.
Or maybe take place, take place during Picard times. That's fine. Because Picard is technically, I guess, 30 years later. Okay, take place 30 years after Voyager, but it's an actual Star Trek show, not a show about a old man traveling through time.
So when Discovery first came out, I was really hoping that what they were going to do was they were going to use this new spore drive, or whatever the hell it's called, and they were going to, they were going to say, okay, this is going to allow us to kind of like travel instantaneously to any point in space.
Right.
But every time they used it, yes, they traveled to a different point in space, but they'd also cross dimensions. And so you'd get the Discovery ship. Every time it used the spore drive, it was in like the mirror universe or some other alternate dimension, and they were trying to get back to their home dimension. Kind of like how Voyager was trying to get back to the Alpha Quadrant.
Yeah, but like Star Trek sliders.
Yeah, exactly. And so like the Discovery crew would be like in a different dimension in every episode, and they'd run into new and interesting challenges, and they get to see different versions of the Federation and all this other stuff. And I thought like, if they went that direction, it'd be really interesting, because then like you could have set that in the original series era and not have to worry about messing with continuity, because the Discovery disappeared, and so like it couldn't influence the timeline,
right?
And
that makes sense why they would not use that technology going forward, because it's so volatile.
Exactly. And so like that's what I originally thought the show was going to be, and then when I actually start watching the show, I was like, oh, come on, man.
Right.
So much wasted potential here.
That is such a great idea. Oh my god, like a Star Trek Sliders edition. Yeah, it's like Voyager meets Sliders. That would be so awesome.
And they did a little bit of that with the mirror universe stuff in the first season, and then they just kind of dropped it. You know, so. But I think that Star Trek, talk about something that's primed for like a cinematic universe. Like you could have all types of crossover synergy between TV shows and movies, and different ideas, different ships, different crews, different timelines. Like there's so much stuff you could do with it. and Paramount just doesn't know what the fuck to do with it, because
They
they just
don't.
keep handing it off to Kurtzman, and he just keeps screwing it up.
Yeah,
And
these different franchises, like Marvel has the different, Thor, Iron Man, Hulk,
yeah,
whatever.
they have like the Magic Universe, they have the street level stuff, they have the Avengers stuff, they
Right.
have
You could have done the
the
same
cosmic
thing.
stuff.
You could have
Yeah,
had different ships. Like those were their, let's say let's call the ship the Kadish. And the Kadish, it has its own movies. And every once in a while it crosses over with, the Popcast. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
You don't even have to do the Federation. Like, you could have a show dedicated to like a Klingon ship,
Right.
or you could have a show dedicated to like a Ferengi trading post or something like
Right.
that. Like, there's so much potential there.
And the tie-in with their video games, which is all spaceship related, would have been epic.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're right. That'd have been
and,
so cool.
and with the volume technology nowadays, like, you could make these shows super cheap. Like I remember when they were getting Discovery off the ground, CBS wasn't putting a lot of money into like set design and costumes and all this stuff, because they were gearing up for like, a whole new production. Well, with the stuff that they're doing at ILM with like the volume, like the digital green screen stuff, or I should say digital soundstage stuff, like, that type of stuff makes it super cheap,
right,
to do these sci-fi shows. So I'd like to see way more innovation coming from Star Trek than we currently are seeing.
Yeah, and they're even using that. There was this whole like docuseries or documentary or whatever, how Discovery in this latest season was using like this really cool tech where the computer would track the actor with, like, so you put like a tracker on them, and they're in this like giant room where it's wall to wall screens all around them, like a giant, circular room.
It's the volume. That's what it's
called. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the green screen. Okay, so that, yeah.
No. So like, it's basically a sound stage that has like this curved LED screen.
Okay, yeah, we're talking about the same thing.
That you can then like put whatever you want on it, and you can also adjust the lighting and stuff like that. So you can make it an outdoor setting, you can make it an indoor setting. It's basically what they use for the Mandalorian.
Yeah, and it's changing with the character that's walking.
Yeah.
Which is so they're tracking the camera and the character, and the information's changed, which is awesome. Yeah, super
and
cool.
it's all done in Unreal Engine 5. Like, all the background stuff is done in Unreal Engine. So,
I thought you were talking about like the green screen tech that we've been seeing.
No. So like that's the old tech.
Yeah.
The new tech is called the volume. I don't know why they call it the volume or whatever, but it's basically the LED digital sound stage.
Oh, LEDs, yeah. Yeah, that's super cool, and it makes it way cheaper.
Yeah.
You don't gotta build giant spaceships anymore.
Yeah, and it's cool because the LED, like, they come in these like tiles, right? Where it's like 12 by 8 foot tile or inch tiles, and you just plug them in, and you can make it as tall or as wide or as curved as you want.
Yeah.
As long as like you have the frame there, and if any part of it breaks, you just like remove that tile and pop in a new one. So it's really easy to maintain.
When Shane and I were at the Fox studio lot watching the Orville stuff, they had a wall like that, and like behind it is just like a wall of wires. It looks like science
Yeah,
fiction.
there's actually this company on TikTok that has like a gaming computer screen where it's like this huge curved wall, and it's like 8 foot tall of these LED screens.
Awesome.
And he's sitting there gaming on it, and they kind of show like how the wall's made up and what all the tiles look like and like how it works, and it's fascinating.
That's very cool.
Yeah. So like with that technology, you could do so much stuff in the sci-fi and fantasy space. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, you totally could. Yeah, I want to see more. I want to see more of this stuff, but I don't want to see it just because the technology is good. You got to get the story right, and I think you're right.
Yeah.
The prequel plague is like nonstop. I'm still going to watch Strange New Worlds, but
another issue with prequels, Brian, real quick, is that and this was really pronounced in Discovery, is that the technology, right, is so advanced that if you use the advanced technology in the prequels, and it's better than the originals,
right,
it creates an audience disconnect, because they're like, why does this look so much better than the originals? So when you go forward with a franchise, you can incorporate the new technology, and it's just like part of the natural evolution of the world that you're in.
Right.
Yeah. because you remember when Pike came on in season 2 of Discovery, and he was like, I don't like the holographic stuff. Let's do everything on the screens. And so like that's how they justified the original series not having any holograms and shit.
Right.
And it was just like, it was so dumb.
Well, but then they tried to make it less about Pike demanding that it didn't happen, and they made it like the control computer thing was using the holographic. So stupid.
Yeah, it's not like they could go into like a Star Dock and have that fixed.
Right.
You know? It's impossible, right?
Yeah, it's impossible. Yeah, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I don't like the prequels. I've always said it. I don't like prequels. I love Star Trek, so I want to see as much Star Trek as you can give me. And if the prequel has a good story, then I'm all for it. But you're right, there is a weird disconnect, because even when they try to dumb the technology down, it just looking better alone is enough for my brain to sort of like that's better. Even if it's not better, I think it's better. Yeah. It looks better to me.
And I also think it'd be nice if they could establish what timeline we're in, because you have the Kelvin timeline, you have the original Prime timeline.
Yeah.
I don't know where we are with any of these Trek shows.
And the weird thing is, Discovery actually like brought that up. They brought up the whole branch timeline thing, and then they just walked away from it. You're like, wait. Go back to that. Don't just mention the Kelvin universe and then walk away, please.
I feel like they have to have like a Crisis on Infinite Earths type thing at this point, where like they do something to combine the timelines, or like at least establish what timeline we're in, because like all this stuff just doesn't make any fun. Like if we were in an alternate timeline and they were futzing with Star Trek canon, original series style canon, be like, okay, we're in a completely different timeline. It's fine.
Right.
But they don't do that.
Right. Yeah, because they don't do that, they're actively making what we already love worse. And people go,
yes,
oh, what do you care for? You still have TOS, you still have TNG. That hasn't changed. I'm like, no, you're wrong. It has changed, because you just took the universe, you went before them, and your actions are making those shows and their stories worse. Like your actions are making their stories, and what I remember, they're minimizing their actions and their stories. And so it's not just like there's this parallel fan base. This fan base, this new style is actively hurting the old one. It's not like a reboot. If it was a reboot, fine. People go, I don't want to reboot because I love Goonies. Don't reboot Goonies. Like, well, I'll tell you, you don't. It's not like because they make a new version of Goonies, they're not going to walk into your home and take your Goonies tape and walk out. Yeah. It's still there, but this is a prequel in the universe, which means their actions are directly affecting what I remember of my favorite shows.
And see, that was my biggest problem with the J.J. Abrams movies, where like instead of resetting the timeline from the TV show, they should have just said like, okay, this is like, a reboot of Star Trek. And then like they wouldn't have had to dealt with any continuity shit.
Right.
But they wanted to bring Leonard Nimoy in. They wanted to do all this like stupid timey-wimey stuff. And, Kurtzman and Abrams weren't fans of Star Trek, and so like they just futzed with it and broke it, and now like this is what we have.
Dude, I would argue that that was the only thing JJ could do. I think was like,
it's not the only thing. Like he literally came into Star Wars and was just like, hey, all that stuff that came before, EU stuff, it's no longer valid.
Right,
We're just gonna do our own thing.
But in the Kelvin movies, he was trying to connect the audiences together, so he used the timey-wimey stuff to sort of put his movies in an alternate timeline.
What I'm saying is like the Star Trek fan base that he was trying to connect, if he had just said like, hey, we're just rebooting this so that we can tell our own stories and stuff like that, the Star Trek fan base would have been like, great, sounds good.
No, I don't think they would have. I think Star Trek would have been like, oh yeah, but wait, what happens here? What about Khan? He was this guy, he was that guy.
Well, I'll tell you that they would have liked it much better than dealing with all the continuity errors that it created.
Right. Well, see, if you take his movies and you just move them over to an alternate dimension or whatever, then they can do whatever they want going forward, and you can have some of the same faces and names without.
I mean, I'm using your reboot argument on this. What? It's like if he had just said, "Hey, we're rebooting the original series going forward," people would have just gotten on board. Some of them might not have liked it.
Oh, I see.
But they would have accepted
because you still have the originals. It's not canonical. Okay.
Yeah. So like the J.J. Abrams movies with Chris Pine and all that stuff, he's just saying like, okay, it's like Shatner and Nimoy never happened. It's just like we're starting from scratch.
Yeah, he wanted his cake and he wanted to eat it too. So he's like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna connect these things, but also move it to another dimension so I can do whatever I want going forward. And then, oh wait, there's an email from Disney. I gotta go, guys. Later.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Hey, Kurtzman, you handle this.
never mind. Kurtzman,
out.
good luck.
Yeah.
And Kurtzman's sitting there like, oh, we're making Star Trek. I'm still working on this Limitless TV show.
Yeah, Kurtzman's like, what the hell's a Star Trek? What are we doing here?
Oh, Star Trek. Okay, guys, that's about it. Let us know in the comment section what you guys think. Are you guys excited about Strange New Worlds? Hit the subscribe button on the way down to the comment section. And I'm going to go ahead and put in this video, I would put all of Matt's information as well. And all of his links and all that. Matt, you want to say something?
Also, tomorrow, you're going to be on our channel doing our weekly Star Trek live stream, where me and Matt Vader and our special guests, Brian Salty Trekker and Danny the Dork Knight, get to bitch about the current state of Star Trek. And,
is Mike back from his week-long vacation?
I think so. Let me check my email.
His banishment from the interwebs?
Okay, so yeah, he says he has internet again. He'll be able to make it.
Very cool. Yeah, we'll be back then, guys, so do not miss it. I will also put the link to that in the live stream and in this video.